knows? Who knows Lord of the Rings? Yeah. Who knows the sword that cut the ring? This is not that sword. So, the first time anyone picks up an actual, real steel sword, the look in their eyes, from small children to old ladies, there's a certain magic about that moment. These are the words of my friend, Fran Terminello. She's a sword fighter in the UK, and like so many of us, she's passionate about historical European martial arts. Who knows that word? Yeah, a few of you? Historical European martial arts are the martial arts of medieval Europe. Yes, they existed. They were very complicated, very beautiful, just as like the Asian martial arts are. And unfortunately, they died out, which is why most of us don't actually know about them these days. But for those of us who are completely crazy about swords, we have been recreating the arts from fighting manuals, books that were left from the people who actually studied in those ancient times. And they were very good about leaving us lots of information. Not all the information that we needed, but just enough. So using our understanding of martial arts and working with the actual weapons, we've been able to recreate these arts. But when I was very young, I didn't know that they existed. I was crazy about swords from probably about this big, and I was introduced to swords the way most of us are, through the movies. I was a very small child, and I saw Robin Hood and Peter Pan and all those, squashbuckling kind of movies which introduced me to heroism. And when I was 4 years old, my mum actually made me my first sword. It wasn't a beautiful steel sword, and I don't think I would have known what to do with it anyway. It was a wooden sword, and it was small, and it was white. My mum painted it. She put it out to dry, and the next day, we came home to find that our home had been burnt to the ground. I was 4 years old. So I lived in Australia, and these things happen. Unfortunately, bushfires are a really big part of that country because it's such a dry environment. And people really, to live there, you've really got to be aware of your environment. And unfortunately, when we came home and our home was burned down, it wasn't that unusual. There was a question that maybe it was bush rats. Now, I love rats, as you know, so I don't hold it against them if it were. My mum also loved animals, and the thing is, I didn't live in a normal house. I lived on a campsite. My mum had actually bought a campsite from the YMCA, and so when I say that our home burnt down, it was actually my mum's apartment and the main barn, and my little cabin was fine. My little cabin with its 4-year-old treasures. But my mum unfortunately lost everything that day, and to anyone who's experienced losing everything, it's quite devastating, especially the animals. So all of my mum's animals were killed, except for her horse, and I was fine. So they said it was possibly bush rats, but there was a question, possibly the electrical heater had been left on, and I might have left my dressing gown on it. Now, I can tell you this, if you have a small child in your life, don't ever, ever let them think something like that is their fault. My mom didn't, but the question was there. So you can imagine growing up with that kind of question mark in your mind, it can create so much guilt, so much responsibility for someone so young. And my mom was a professional psychologist, which meant that I got really good at being fine. I learned how to kind of get on with things, and I also convinced myself that I was fine for a really long time. And I was anyway a really strange kid. I was one of those kids that they're kind of weird. You don't really know how to talk to them because they're always doing something weird, like turning the rubbish pile into a dragon or something, like just one of those weird kids that's always in their own little world. And that honestly was how I dealt with my reality, was by creating fantasy worlds. I was extremely creative. I was very artistic. I had stories that I was building all the time, and that was how I dealt with things. I was really escaping, and that's such a good coping strategy for a while. And if you are a creative person, it's a wonderful way to turn trauma into something that you can use to understand your world. I have to turn my page, excuse me. Do you also know the TV series The Dollhouse? Does anyone know it? The director is Joss Whedon, who's also known for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, The Avengers, that guy. So he created this great TV series called The Dollhouse. And there's this great quote from it that goes, "When you see someone running incredibly fast, you have to ask yourself, are they running from something or are they running to something?" And the quote continues, "The answer is always both. Achievement is always balanced by fault, by a lack." You see someone that's a high achiever and they're overcompensating. No, I don't completely think that everyone who achieves is overcompensating. I just think it's a majority of us. So that quote really rings true for me because I spent most of my life trying to run, basically, from what had happened, trying to pretend to be okay. But the thing that really cut through my fantasy, the adventure and heroism of my fantasy worlds, was the sword. Because everyone can relate to a sword, right? I mean, it's at the center of all our mythology. It's this epic kind of heroic symbol. And it's something that's attached to a very real martial arts form. So when I found out that actually European martial arts existed, I was still very much a fantasy-loving geek who was into Lord of the Rings and just wanted to be dressing up all the time. But I also wanted to learn everything I could about this beautiful weapon. So I did. And something interesting happened. Because the thing about martial arts is it forces you to move. It forces you to be present in your body. So even though the sword was my tool, I realized something really interesting. I was the sword. The sword was me. And I think that having a weapons-based martial art is a great way to get people to learn to fight, because you can focus outside of your body, but eventually you have to be able to bring it back into yourself. You have to be able to read a situation. You have to be sensing the amount of force that's in something. What you don't usually see in the movies is pressure. When swords bind like this, they're pushing on each other. The amount of force, if I push too hard, it's going to leave this one moving. So in movies, you see a lot of this. That kind of thing, right? Looks really familiar. Rah, I'm going to smash you, I'm going to smash you, I'm going to smash you. Actually, you don't want to do that in a real fight, because the moment you step away, dead. So you want to control the other person in a fight. You want to use the sword to move. You're moving them, and you're moving yourself as well. And the thing about a sword fight is when you're too close to use a sword, you're going to use your body. You're going to use the sword in unusual ways. It's a weapon. You can use any side of it. You can use the pommel, you can use the hilt. It's this wonderful, versatile thing, and there's a reason it was so popular for thousands of years. So learning all this really taught me how to be present, which was something that a person growing up and surviving trauma has trouble learning. It's like a disconnect that's there to keep you safe, If you've lived through trauma and you're reliving that trauma every day, it can disable you. So you have to disconnect, because that's your survival. But you also have to move on, because the fear will eat you alive. And the thing that is very real for me is fear. I always am afraid. It's like the Hulk, I'm always angry. That's my secret. I'm Bruce Banner. I am always afraid. But being always afraid means you have an opportunity to always be brave. Because if you're not afraid of something, and you don't have that fear in place, you never really know what it is that you need to overcome. I've learned that fear is like a guide. If I'm afraid of doing something, it means it's very important. And I can avoid it. I'm very good at avoiding things. But I have learned that if I do that for too long, it stunts me. I'm going to be unhappy. So I've learned to embrace challenge. Now, it doesn't mean I've got it completely right. But I've started a conversation with my fear that I find very useful. So instead of thinking of fear as this thing that is like this overwhelming black darkness that's going to eat you alive and it's a demon around every corner, no, not at all. See, my fear is actually a very small child, or at least this is how I think of it. It's more than one child. It's a small me that's been hurt throughout my life, all that pain, all that fear. It's become a little person. So it's like a group of little people who are really scared. And if I try and ignore my fear, well, it's like a kid, They're going to feel hurt, and they're going to be more and more insistent on wanting to understand the thing that they're afraid of, or trying to get your attention, like, oh no, don't do that thing. I know it's going to be bad. I know it's going to be bad. I know it's going to be bad. And it'll get stronger and stronger and stronger the more you push it away. So you can't do that. Or I can't, anyway. I've had to change my tactics. It's like dealing with a hydra, You push one away and another head just comes up. So instead, I have to take the little kids, all those little fears, and I have to look at the thing that they're afraid of. And I have to go, okay, I see that thing. I see what it is. I understand that there's a risk there. How can we deal with this risk? So you have to actually look at the thing you're afraid of and do it anyway. But you have to do it in a way that acknowledges that you're afraid. So since I changed that conversation with myself, the story around my fear, it's really helped. Because it means that I can see myself as a hero overcoming things. But instead of making my fear the monster, I see the challenge as the monster. The challenge of the thing. If you ever go out into the mountains, think of Lord of the Rings, okay, trekking across Middle Earth, so many mountains, so many unknown places. The fear is going to that place because you don't know what's going to be there. You could get hurt. You could lose everything. And in Lord of the Rings, they do have a great deal of loss, but they keep going, even though they're afraid. And being able to frame your life as a story, having that narrative, it's a powerful tool for courage. I need to change my page again, excuse me. So the thing is, if I'm afraid and I can overcome it, I know you can too. You have to make a decision every single day. You have to decide, am I going to follow the thing that I love, which gives me strength, gives me confidence? Or am I going to hide and let that thing that I can't quite look at or deal with, am I going to let that rule my life? And it's a decision, guys. It's a decision to be a hero. And I promise you, once you create a practice of being a hero, one day you'll wake up and you'll be that person. Thank you.
The Hero Roundtables are the global events that ask the question, what is a hero? You've just seen one hero talk. To find more and join the conversation, visit our website or social media.